Okay, so next in the chapter, they bring up the concept of the self, right? Exploring the self. And of course, our self, or our self concept, is basically, thought of as the center of our personality. It's our sense of self and who we are. As they say in there in the definition, the organizer of our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Ooh, right? So yeah, each of us has a sense of self. The thing is, our sense of self is probably inaccurate. All right. So I mentioned this spotlight effect in there, the spotlight effect, which is where we overestimate what others notice about us and how people evaluate us and our appearance, our performance, and our blunders, all that sort of stuff. So a spotlight effect, especially, at least in my own life, okay, yeah, when I was younger, when I was a teenager, oh my God, you always think everybody's watching you, right? You always think everybody's going to notice that zit, or that kind of stuff. No. It's just not true. It's just not true, right? We think everybody's critiquing us all the time, and they notice us when we do this little mess up over here. In reality, they don't. All right, because we know ourselves, right? So we kind of become short-sighted and believe everything notices ourself. Everybody is always watching us and evaluating us. That's just not true, right? In reality, that's not true. I guess it even gets more complicated nowadays, though, with the internet and all these profiles and things that people create. I could see how you might get, just too consumed with trying to present yourself as being something amazing, right? And of course, this is where they get into some other issues here, like self-esteem, right? So our self-esteem is our feelings of high or low self-worth. So our self-esteem is kind of our evaluation of ourself, right? And of course, self-esteem has been a thing that's been of interest for a long time. Used to be thought that, self-esteem is really important. So we tried to encourage good self-esteem in our children and so forth. Of course, the danger with that is you might have self-esteem that is just unrealistically too high. And that can lead to problems. Obviously, if you have self-esteem that's unrealistically too low, that can be problems too. You're overcritical. Part of depression and those sorts of things can be a problem too if it's too low. But it can be dangerous if it's too high as well. So high self-esteem, you might think you're all that. You might overestimate, how good you are. And they mention here that basically that can lead to excessive optimism. Right, excessive optimism. You just think everything's going to work out for you. Well, in the real life, it does not. It just doesn't. In life, we are all going to fail at things, right? That's happened to me. If it hasn't happened to you yet, it will, right? So if you have this excessive optimism, that can set you up for some bad falls, and so you can be blind, right, to your own weaknesses at that point. That's what they say in here. Blindness to one's own incompetence, I guess is what they call it. Where, yeah, we've all seen this, right? I've never been a huge fan and haven't watched many of those, shows, American Idol, The Voice, America's Got Talent. Right? It's great to watch when someone goes in there and pulls it off. But if you start from the very beginning of the show with the first auditions and stuff, right? You've got these people going in there who think they can sing. They think that, oh yeah, I can sing. And they're completely blind to the fact that they can't sing at all. Right? And the judges destroy them. And they come out saying, those judges don't know what they're talking about. Right? So yeah. Excessively high self-esteem can lead to excessive optimism and a blindness to our own incompetence in things. We have to be aware of our own weaknesses. We need to be aware of our own weaknesses, right? To face life and succeed. So they mentioned the dangers of high self-esteem, and it was years ago. I don't know if it's still true, but you know, they found that Americans have the highest self-esteem in all the world. And at the same time, of course, you know, our scores on mathematics and science are going down and down and down. And other countries are doing better than us in science and engineering and math. Oh, but we got great self-esteem. Right? So, right? You need to be aware of reality to some extent. And they mentioned the notion of self-efficacy here too. Self-efficacy. Right? This is one sense of competence and effectiveness. So in other words, self-efficacy is our sense of how successful we can be at something. All right? Self-efficacy. There could be dangers there too. Right? If you think you can do more than you really can, yeah, setting yourself up for a fall. Right? Of course, if you have really excessively low self-efficacy, you just don't think you can succeed at anything, you might become a couch potato and never try anything. And of course, sometimes people do that. They don't try things because they fear they might fail, right? But excessively high self-efficacy can be a problem too. Occasionally, I'll have students, you know, who I'm advising come in, right? They've got, you know, a GPA of about 2.0, right? So C's and D's. And they come to me, you know, and they figure out, oh, well, hold it. I can take 18 hours next semester, and maybe I can do that next semester. I can graduate early, and they're barely getting by as is, right? In 9 or 12 hours, and they think they're going to take 18 hours and succeed at doing that, and I have to warn them, no, right? No, you're going to fail, right? Now, of course, I don't say it like that, but if you've got barely passing grades, taking 12 hours, how do you think you're going to take another 6 hours on top of that and get passing grades in all your courses and in the higher level courses at that? So once again, blind to your own incompetence, believe you can do more than you really can, setting yourself up for a fall. Now, all of us, I think, fall prey to that sometimes, right? And of course, we mentioned, you know, back in chapter 1, right? Hindsight bias, but especially the overconfidence. That people are just overconfident. We think we can do more than we really can, right? So we, and I guess you can look at that with various presidents and things over time too, right? They come in with all these agendas they want to get done in 4 years, and it doesn't happen, right? Because it just doesn't work that way. Right? They can't just do it themselves. But anyway, so you know, you got that, and they do mention the self-serving bias here, right? The self-serving bias, which is indicative of this, where basically we have a tendency to perceive ourselves favorably, right? We have a tendency to perceive ourselves favorably. Kind of self-serving bias too. I'd kind of call that in my own mind, the politician's creed, right? The politician's creed, because you know the politicians, right? If anything succeeds, they're there and they were involved and they made this happen. If a program fails, well, not my fault. I'm not there. I had nothing to do with it, right? It's the politicians. Well, we do that ourselves, right? In our own life, the self-serving bias. Good stuff we take credit for, bad stuff we deny responsibility for, right? So we just have this tendency to perceive ourselves favorably. Of course, this is in general. Unfortunately, there are some that don't do that, with the excessive low self-esteem can be, you know, once again, mixed up with some mental disorders in terms of major depressive disorder or something, which is very unfortunate. But a lot of us, probably most of us, have problems perceiving ourselves too favorably, right? So they close out the chapter with a little bit on the self-esteem, self-efficacy, all that kind of stuff. All right, and that is pretty much chapter 14.